Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome to the Happiness Show. This is George Ortega. I'm here with Lionel Ketchen, and we're here to talk about happiness because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Today we have as our special guest Candace Bolback. Candace is a psychotherapist and life coach with practices in Chappaqua and Manhattan, and she's developed a special program called the Hidden Box Experience for helping individuals to really access and achieve their goals and dreams. On this episode, we're going to be basically exploring the hidden box experience, and then we're going to be applying it to happiness. So let's start off first with exploring what the hidden box experience is about. Hi Candace, welcome to the show. Can you start us off with just giving us a basic description about the program?
Experience is a program that I developed after a lot of years of working with people and finding that it was very difficult to get awareness when it's very close to you. It may take a long time in therapy. It's a goal-oriented program. It's life coaching. So sometimes if you separate yourself from yourself, you can gain awareness and see something you hadn't seen before. For an example, the box is a metaphoric box. It's not real, but you've developed it yourself, which means you can change it, or add something to it, or take something out. Often this kind of helps people to see themselves, or see some reason that they're not reaching a goal, something that they are stopping themselves. For an example, if you're a box and you're on a cloud, you may be filled with wonderful things, but if you're up on a cloud, how can someone get to you? So you may want to move the box to some place that's more accessible. You might want to look in the box and take one thing out, and you might want to put one thing away. So you're making the choices, gives you back your power and your strength, which makes you happier.
Great. Okay, and also I guess a lot of times seeking out our goals, our personal dreams and all can be, scary to some people, and I suppose the hidden box experience makes it easier for people to be able to access that information.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, no, like the idea that like having it as a metaphor, rather than, because a lot of times, just exploring what we really want can be, we haven't thought about it. A lot of times it's hidden from us because in some way maybe it's threatening. So like perhaps your program guides people to what they really want in a way that they can understand. It's more gentle.
Very much so. What I found was a lot of people coming to me and saying, I'm just not happy. I don't know exactly why I'm not happy. But we may all make choices in our life. And sometimes the choices we make are conscious and sometimes they're unconscious. And so we may say, I want to be a mom, I want to stay home, and I want to raise my kids. So my conscious choice is to say, I'm going to put my career aside. Nothing wrong with that. It's fabulous if that's what you want and it makes you happy. But at some point in your life, children grow up, things change, and you may not even be aware of why you're not happy. So it's that point that the hidden box, we use that to help you to look at what you put aside for another time and why it's appropriate to take out now. Spontaneity, for an example, is a big one, because when you've got little kids at home, and even whether you're dad or your mom, it's very difficult to be spontaneous and take off at a moment's notice. So you've got to sort of put that aside. But when the children go to college, there's no reason that you can't go in this box and pick out spontaneity and do a couple of things a day that are spontaneous to begin to become aware again that you can be spontaneous. Sometimes we forget, and then we realize that we're happier from the point of view that we have choices, we have control. So that's how it works.
Great. Candace, I absolutely resonate and agree 100% with the statement you made, actually in the very beginning, that we're responsible, I guess you're saying we're responsible for the choices we make, and out of that we derive power, we sense our power and our strength, and that's how we tap into happiness, and that is very true. And I think that that our unhappiness does come about from not being able to make choices and not being and giving our power away. I'm wondering with the hidden box if it's a case where you gave us the story of a mother who's put her own, I guess, life. Well, she's chosen a life, a career, and that's child raising.
Right.
And then after, it might be after 5 years or 10 years or 20, when you forget, and it's only human to forget that you made that choice, you had the power, you made the choice, you're operating on your own steam. So is part of this hidden box the idea that we're responsible for where we're going? Because maybe consciously or unconsciously, we've chosen it.
Yeah, and once you begin to realize that you've made choices, and they're not bad choices. They're choices usually that we need to make at one point in our life. And when you start to take the control back, your power back, and your strength back, and you say, well, you know, it's not gone. It's just, I put it aside, and now I can regain some of that. You also might want to be able to see what you've put around yourself in those years, or in that time. What's helping you not to reach your goals? And what are your goals? So developing goals and then reaching those goals are really important to us. When we think about expectations, if your expectation is that I probably am not going to be able to do that, and you think of 10 reasons why you can't do that, it's really important that we meet our own expectations. We have a personal interest in it. So it's really an important issue to stop and think about, what are my expectations? Once you realize what your expectations are and you develop a goal, then you can start to visualize the box and look what's inside the box that's going to help you to reach that goal. It could be love, it could be making more money, it could be just being more successful in your career, any area that you can think of. But mostly people deal with relationships, love, money, success. Those are really important things that we hear about all the time. So you might be doing something that's stopping you from getting that, or you may not be using everything that your potential has. So the hidden box helps you to do that, develop a goal, see your goal, and then put away what you don't need and take out what you do need. So pretty much I called it, find it, work it, own it. So once you find what's there, you work it into your life to make changes and to reach goals, and then you own that experience. And when you walk into a door, you know you own the place you're in.
Great. Okay, now so like as you were saying, we each have our particular way, our ambition, what we want out of life, and it's different for each of us. And then in general, like, we're pursuing our dreams and goals, you know, to make us happier. The ultimate result is always to maintain our happiness or to become happier. So let's explore the hidden box experience, the program, in relation to, for example, becoming very happy or happy as one's goal, and you know, perhaps incorporating different strategies, more specific strategies toward that.
Okay. First, I believe happiness is a choice we all make. It's not something that happens to us. There are several different programs that I do that I think it answers your question. For an example, breaking patterns in a relationship, not necessarily what the other person does, but how you react to the other person and why you've picked that person. And not necessarily that you have to go home and leave that person because you know that they're similar to the last person you've been with, but rather how you react. So those are taking your power back and looking at yourself opposed to the other person that's going to make you happy. It's almost impossible for someone else to make you happy over a long extended period. And that's where I think when people stop feeling happy with the relationship, it's mostly about having the expectation that the other person's going to make me happy. What happened? They stopped making me happy.
Right, so in a sense, there are issues in our lives, like relationships, where that's a lot of times they need to be worked on. But I think what you're also saying is that the happiness is really what matters also. I mean, we're not perfect, our mates aren't going to be perfect, and we have to really accept that, understand that, work on it as much as we need to, but not allow the imperfections in our relationships to really limit, our basic goal, our main goal, which is to remain happy, despite relationships and other aspects of our life.
I agree with that 100%, and I think that also what people might say is, that's great, but certain life circumstances happen to all of us, and when they do, how can you actually expect someone to feel happy? And I agree that, for an example, we had the World Trade Center. I mean, there was no way that any of us could feel happiness about anything that was occurring, but there's still a person feeling good about themselves. And do I continue to go on because I have a child and I have to make that child feel safe and secure and happy? Is that something that I would want my spouse to do if something happened to me? So I feel sad and terrible about what's happened, and that's going to take a long time to heal, if ever. But I can still feel happy with myself and the way I'm handling it. And I can feel my own strength. I can feel good about that. And that's really what happiness is feeling good about what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think part of the power, or maybe a powered statement that could be said at this point, is that if we let circumstances, no matter what they are, even the World Trade Center, dictate how we will choose to act in this moment, then we give all our power away to whatever the circumstances are, and we have no power. And that's a sad part. And that's a sad part. That's why happiness is how we choose and is ultimately power. And when we're unhappy and we are feeling a lack of power, we become desperate, we become afraid, we lash out, we get angry, we fight, we do lots of things. And unfortunately, we don't create a good atmosphere for those around us. So in a bad situation, we take what has already happened and continue to make the future bad by our negative reaction rather than a positive response for our own life.
I think that's absolutely true. When you think, you can change any attitude if you want to. It's a rainy day, which we were talking about. You can look at it and say, it's a great rainy day. It gives me a chance to do something, to have a little bit of quiet time. If you have to go out in the rain, well, it's kind of nice to have that day where it's not so sunny. Summer's been here. It's a nice relaxing day. It also tells us that the weather's changing again. Soon it's going to be fall, and what's happening in the future. We've got a lot of things that we always put things off and say, well, this summer I think I'm just going to take it slow, relax. But September, the kids are going to school, I'm starting to do this. So it's sort of a day to say, wow, this is going to be a great day. So that's your expectation. It's going to be a great day. Chances are it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about expectations a bit more, because in your workshops, that's one of the questions that you ask your clients. What do you expect from this experience? And the question,
very much.
Yeah, what I want to ask, what I'm interested in is, like, how many people that come to your workshops that you work with are very aware that first, I suppose a lot of times they're not really aware of what they specifically want, but then how many of them are really aware of why they want it? In other words, that happiness is really why they want what they want, and then what kinds of strategies do you use to kind of like guide them to that understanding?
Well, for one thing, I always ask people what their expectations are, and I ask them to write it down, because once you've committed something to writing it down, that's a huge part of having that come true. I ask them to take that and put it aside. And as soon as they've written down what their expectations are, I want them to put it aside. The next thing I ask them is, why did you come? Why would you even come to this workshop? What was the reason for you to come to the workshop? And what do you expect to get out of it? After we finish talking about that, what I give people the opportunity to do is to look at what their expectations are and know that this is something that they've committed to their heart. This is very important to them. We don't want to be wrong, so we want to make our expectations happen. So if the expectation is, I don't really expect to get too much out of this. I expect that it'll be interesting, but not exactly, I have no real thoughts about it. I'm just going to sort of let it happen. You have that opportunity to change that. Write another piece of paper. Try something that's really from yourself. What do you want to get out of this? Why are you here? Make that expectation happen. So if your expectation is, I'm going to get a lot out of this, I am going to find out a lot about myself, I'm going to make goals, in other words, make me work. Because certainly it's not going to make me work if you say, I don't think much is going to happen. If not much is going to happen, I can almost do anything and it really wouldn't matter. So I would prefer someone taking a real positive attitude about what they want and definitely making me go in and do the best I can.
What would you say to a client who, let's say, discovers their ambition, their dream through your program, and they begin to work on it, but sometimes, like for example, we can overwork ourselves in pursuing a dream. It can become something that consumes us, and for example, a lot of times in the United States, we tend to just be workaholics. We just work so much, so that when you notice that that's happening, they're working toward their dreams or succeeding with them, but you notice that maybe they're working too much and they're maybe missing the point of their dream, what the dream is supposed to achieve for them. So how do you kind of like have them succeed in balancing their dream with like really feeling good doing it and having it serve them?
I think what happens is that, have you ever thought of something that you really wanted to do? And write a book. And as you start to think about it, you think, well, I think I'll I'll talk about this childhood experience. And then you start to think about it, and in your head you start to write it. And then all of a sudden you get to a certain point and you say, actually, maybe I better not do that because I don't know why most people would be interested in that. So that's where you're self-defeating. If what I tell people to do is just write one page. Get a little journal, write one page. Don't expect it to go, don't ask where it's going. Just do the one page and that's your goal. You've set a goal, you have it. When you start to look too far ahead and your goals are too big, chances are you're going to either work too hard to get there, you're going to have a lot of negative self-talk that's going to stop you from getting there. But if you take smaller steps, reach a goal, and then sit down and say, okay, what have I accomplished? And how do I feel about myself? Feel good.
Yeah, we're talking about expectation, but I'm listening to both of you, and I think expectation, like intention, is a very powerful word, but or and, I should say. I'm not trying to limit it. Sometimes people don't really fully comprehend what that word can do for them or what it can do to them, because there's a very thin line between expectation and desperation. And when people become desperate because they think they're not getting what they expect, and they act like a kid about it and they get angry, that's exactly self-defeating, and that's why people can't get what they want, because the desperation steps in and knocks everything out of line. And so I would think that we should fully expect to get what we want, but never at the point of desperation, because I think when we, for example, if our expectation is that it's going to be a nice day, we should be just as happy having a good day as a rainy day. I didn't say miserable day, I just said rainy day, because the miserable word is the desperation that comes in and labels things. And I think it's very important to look at expectation for what it can do for you, and not to go overboard with it to the desperation level.
Well, I think the desperation is the negative self-talk. That's basically what it is, because once you establish that you have an expectation about something, and when it doesn't work out exactly the way you decided it was going to work out, or it's too big, we can't control the weather. I mean, it's not something we can do. So if you pick something that you can't control, for an example, if you say, I am definitely going to make that other person happy no matter what they want, I am going to make them happy, you're self-defeating, and you are going to become desperate, because that person's not going to become happy with what you're doing. You have to make yourself happy, and from that, someone might say, this is great, I love being with this person.
I just got to say, Candace, that's a perfect example of what we were talking about. I mean, well done there.
Thank you.
Okay, Candace, let's explore something. I come to you as a client and I tell you I want to be extremely happy 99 to 100% of the time. And this is very genuine, because that is my sincere greatest dream and goal in life. So what would you tell me, and how would you lead me to that?
Well, first I'd want to know how much of the time you're happy now.
Oh, I'm happy. I would say, the average is about 54% of the time. I think I'm happy at least 85 or 90%, at least 90% of the time, yeah.
So then the next question I probably have is, what are you doing the other percentage of the time to say I'm not, to make that negative? Because part of the time you're saying, I'm happy, I feel good about me. And the other part of the time, you're giving yourself the exact opposite. So then you'd want to say, well, if I can do this 54% of the time, what am I doing 54% of the time to make myself feel this way? And who am I? What am I like? What do I like about myself? What are the things that give me less happiness in that other percentage? Why is that not working? And are you being too hard on yourself? Because the other percentage, the other 50%, 40%, whatever it might be when you're really hard on yourself, not something that you would do to a friend. So you might be actually happy most of the time, but you may not be giving that to yourself. So if you had a friend, you wouldn't say to your friend, gee, you really messed up there, that's terrible. You might say to your friend, you did a pretty good job. I mean, that's not terrible. 55% of the time you do a really great job, and you tried. Would you say that to yourself?
Yeah, but you know what happens with me, and Lionel, I'd like you to address this, because I think you succeed with this very, very well. What happens is, there's always the component of goodness. Like, for example, if you're a parent, you want to be very happy, but then you have responsibilities. You have to make sure that your children get their education, or attended to, cook their meals and all. We all have responsibilities in our jobs and all. For me, it's that I want, an ambition of mine is to help everyone become as happy as possible, and sometimes I end up working too much on that, which actually limits my happiness. That's not good.
It might be, one of the things is what we talked about. You probably can't make somebody else happy, but you can probably make them realize their happiness within themselves by experiencing your happiness and who you are and how you live your life and how you're positive about yourself and about others and about them, which is going to help them to say, yeah, you know, I guess I'm a pretty good person, you know, this is not bad. So I think that the expectation, you might want to adjust a little. So opposed to wanting to make them happy, you might want to help them to see their happiness or to see the kind of person they are. Which, I mean, we've talked, so I know you do that. Because you've done it with, you know, we've talked and you've done it with me.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I guess you do it more than 50% of the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, again, I'm happy about at least 90% of the time, but I want to, you know, just for the science of it, to understand that it can be done.
Is it possible you could say to yourself, you know what, I do this 90% of the time. I feel extremely happy. I like to show other people happiness and give them an understanding of how they can be happy. And 10% of the time I have to rest.
Oh, yeah. Lionel, we've got a little over a minute, so how do you do it? And then we're going to, okay.
Sure. Well, I do it 100% of the time very easily because it isn't all perfect, but when I find that little flaw where maybe I find a little bit of imperfectness in myself or in a situation or a person, I step back for a moment and forgive myself for feeling resistance in the situation, and the whole thing dissolves and I'm back to happiness because I can't control anything but myself. It works for me.
Cool.
Right. In other words, you're human.
Yeah.
You know, most people are human, and they need to be able to be easier on themselves and to be kind to themselves.
All right. Candace, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. This is fun.
Now, before we end, can you give our audience maybe some contact information so they get more information about your program?
Sure. I have an office in Chappaqua at 229 King Street, and I have an office at 242 East 72nd Street in Manhattan. And the number to reach me is 914-672-6841. And the other number that you can leave a message on is 914-861-9125. And I have an email at cbolbeck@AOL.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. In the future, we'll explore other topics designed to help us best enjoy life. Be good, think well, feel very happy, and I hope you'll join us again next week here on The Happiness Show.
Happiness is powerful. It's our underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is destiny. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.